Distribution is an outcome. What comes first is the utility, the value that you create for the users.
Is the goal to be like the super app or the super platform?
People wake up with it. People go to bed with it. That's where they have their family chats. That's where sometimes partnerships are made.
How do you manage your global expansion?
Self-custodial is global. We don't need to bring it to more places.
What's actually different about distributing a crypto financial product versus traditional fintech?
Views are personal, not investment advice.
This is Money Code. It's the show where we decode stablecoins and agentic finance. I'm Chuck Okpolugo, and today we're joined by Irina Chuchkina, Chief Growth Officer at Wallet in Telegram. It's the only wallet natively integrated into a super app. Telegram has a billion users, but before going into Telegram, she launched GrabPay across 8 countries in Southeast Asia for 200 million users, and she spent 20 years growing financial products inside platforms people already use. And so distribution is, I think, the final frontier for crypto and stablecoin products. And so really excited to get into this with Irina, who can teach us the playbook for growing our applications. Irina, nice to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Jack. I'm very pleased to be here. And I think I'm still learning. I'm not sure if I can teach yet. I'm not qualified.
Oh, we'll see. I've already learned from just doing my prep for this. It's been very, very helpful. So I'm excited for the audience as well. So let's start with some of the things that you've learned. You spent 20 years growing financial products, Visa, Grab, Tunes, and then last year you jumped into crypto. And so we've always talked up on this show about distribution is key. Distribution beats product, and you've been living that on both sides. So what's actually different about distributing a crypto financial product versus traditional fintech?
I think ultimately my point of view of the distribution and in fact global kind of scalability is first of all twofold. So the first layer is distribution is an outcome, and it can be a goal, of course, but what comes first is the utility, the value that you create for the users, the problem that you help to solve for them. So whether it was Grab back in probably 5, 6, a few years ago, or now Wallet in Telegram, what we're trying to do, first of all, to drive that distribution is to identify problems that we're able to solve for the users, financial problems in this case, and then help them to find a solution within the wallet. What helps us obviously quite a bit is Telegram's, the size, the scale of the platform that we live and operate in. But ultimately, without that use case, without the utility, without that value, really, I think you can't scale. This is the first and primary essential component of it. Sometimes, and it's funny to watch that, what helps also is gamification or trying to, so utility is one thing, but bridging or bringing a little bit of the element of fun or interaction or gamification, that helps us quite a bit. It helps with its first touch point, it helps with the discovery, and then gradually you pull people in and you actually give them something that becomes sticky, really, that becomes part of their day-to-day life. So and that's actually where the experiments part is coming in. Now, coming back to your original question about the distribution, the second lesson that I learned, or the second thing that I've realized through this kind of global expansion is that after launching probably at least 30 markets or so and looking at quite a few different environments and patterns, what I realized is that on one hand, every country is unique, and it's very important to make sure that you connect to the local communities, to the local buying patterns, consumer trends, insights, pain points. But at the same time, sometimes you can actually connect the dots, and you suddenly realize that a user in Thailand could be actually having similar insights to someone in Mexico, where they may speak very different language. And after spending a little bit of that time, you start seeing a little bit of the kind of common denominators and certain things that can be utilized again and again. I spent a little bit of time in Asia. I lived in Singapore for about 8 years, but well, it's never about Singapore really, because if you live in Singapore, you're actually part of that global kind of, not global, but that massive region, about 50 countries across all of Asia Pacific and everything, China and India and Japan and Korea and Malaysia and Thailand, everything. You're exposed to very broad range of the country. So I learned a lot from that experience. And now I'm sort of moving my focus towards Latin America, Central Asia, and Africa as well, also quite a bit. And I just continue to learn. But what I'm trying to say is that that distribution has a lot of local nuances, but you can actually create playbooks and frameworks that could scale. It could help you in one country, potentially across the ocean.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point. It's to go global. Going global is going local, right? You still have to figure out the nuances, the cultures, and I really like what you said about gamification. But even the games are likely different in each locality, and so definitely going to get into what it means to go global and how you guys do it with across custodial and non-custodial elements. But maybe we can start by helping folks understand Telegram as a whole. For those who don't know, is very popular in kind of crypto trading spaces, but Telegram is much more than that. And so maybe you could just give us a high level overview of how Telegram operates today.
Mm-hmm. Sure, sounds good. So Telegram is a messenger, as we probably all know, hopefully. It has about 1 billion monthly active users. But in my sort of personal point of view, it's not just a messenger. It's almost like a whole ecosystem or like a Telegram economy, really, that lives within the single app. The difference between Telegram and, for example, Facebook or Instagram is that, or X, actually, for that reason, is not it's not imposing its own features and products. Telegram has decided at some stage to enable builders to create apps and use cases themselves, really, to innovate inside Telegram. So it created Tom blockchain, which is the blockchain that the whole Telegram is running on. And then it basically created something like an app store or the ability for you to create apps inside Telegram. And I think this is actually quite unique, but it's also precisely what is driving innovation and experiments. So, well, I don't think I've seen anything like that in, again, like other places. You can become a creator, of course, in Instagram or TikTok, but I think there is no monetization opportunity for you to create, additional services. So that's not the case. And there are dozens of thousands of applications, apart from also millions of channels, obviously, where really that economy is thriving and is seeing a lot of success. So that's one real big difference. But there are other things as well that are really important for forming that Telegram economy. And so let me just talk through some of the use cases, what people do on Telegram. So first of all, Telegram serves not just as a messenger, but also as basically a way to create or to read news. So it's like algorithm-free media. I'm reading my news. In fact, a lot of the crypto news that I'm reading, the kind of the snippets, my feed is pretty much mostly in Telegram. I use other platforms too, but that's where I get those insights pretty much in real time, and I get notifications on them. And this is an extremely helpful way to stay in the know. I mentioned creators and creator economy. So people also can create channels, including paid channels, and in fact run and make money on subscriptions. They can run communities. They can sell content. They can sell courses or digital goods. Some people create physical kind of marketplaces, and they sell goods online via Telegram channels as well. So commerce through either channels or bots or mini apps. There's quite a few. In fact, I think I used a few apps just over the course of the last few days. I used eSIM service as I was traveling across Georgia and Armenia. I bought myself eSIMs and I paid via the same payment method, which is wallet in Telegram. So coming back and bringing this back, I think the final part of it is the financial infrastructure that lives within Telegram. So wallets, trading, tokenized assets, all running on the same Tom blockchain. And the wallet in Telegram is by far one of the largest players and actors in that space. So out of 1 billion users, about 150 million users, out of 1 billion Telegram users, about 150 have registered on wallet in Telegram. I think that's actually a pretty powerful, good number.
Right. And so I think the powerful thing there is it's a platform. It's a messaging app as the core kind of starting point, but it's a platform. It's an economy. And just to put things into scale, billion monthly active users. Facebook is the only one other one I can think of that's in the billions. 2 billion. Multiple single-digit billion users as a scale. So this is monumental in terms of a place for people to interact. And obviously, there's global elements and there's local elements too. And I actually think the platform element it does drive innovation. And I think all the things that you mentioned, the applications, and I think for a lot of people who are busy in the AI space, they've learned about Telegram because that's how you get your OpenClaw to talk to you, or your Claude Code to talk to you as well. And I think this concept of this platform being this app, this consumer app, is very common in the East, but less common in the West, at least today. And there are kind of the big super apps in the East that folks think of are like the WeChats of the world, and they're described as super apps because they have everything. Yes, they have messaging, but then there's all the you can buy eSIMs, you can buy applications, you can do your groceries, do travel. Is that how folks should be thinking about where all this should end up? If you have such a strong distribution, is the goal to be like the super app or the super platform?
I think so. And I think it comes partially from the fact that in the emerging markets, phones are a little bit simpler and you just don't have that much, capacity and storage space on your phone. So you don't want to load, I don't know, 10 different apps on it because everything is much leaner and a little bit more agile. There could be other reasons as well. But in general, the way I see it is, well, Telegram has its own audience, whether you feel like you're part of it or not. In many parts of the world, you mentioned Uzbekistan, I'm going to bring it up as an example, but also there are probably dozens of countries like Uzbekistan. People wake up with it, people go to bed with it. That's where they have their family chats. That's where they message their friends. That's where they send congratulations on birthdays. That's where sometimes partnerships are made, crypto partnerships. Oh my God, everyone is discussing partnerships on Telegram. I don't think I have a single crypto chat with my peers or partners on WhatsApp or any other platform. You can connect in other places, but that's where businesses run. So not necessarily crypto business, it can be anything. So for markets and geographies that like this, Telegram is the way for people to communicate. We're not trying to convince people in the UK to take on and actually start using Telegram. What we're trying to do is basically integrate financial services into the app that is already being used every day. So not changing the habit, just adding that additional convenience of managing your money, your digital assets inside the platform that you use every day. And I think it works wonderfully because I think the Western world has one fundamental. I don't know whether it's an issue. It's a blessing and a curse in two different ways. I'm not sure about you, but I know for myself that I have probably something like 10 or so different apps. And I use one for, I don't know, I use Wise for my money transfers. I may use a neobank for like either Revolut or Monzo for my day-to-day transactions and my cards. Plus, I may have also like a Robinhood or something for the investments. And you will have basically a plethora of different things that you're using for different scenarios. In many emerging markets, people either don't have that choice or in fact actually don't want to have that choice. In an ideal world, you would actually probably prefer to keep them all in a single place if they solve your needs, if they actually address your expectations, really. So I think if we can provide and become that financial platform inside Telegram, the messenger that you're using every day, with zero friction, like you don't need to re-upload it because you haven't been using it for 2 months, you actually have it at a touch point, literally just one click away. You can see your balance, you can send money to anyone within Telegram, any single person, irrespective of whether they're registered or not within wallet, they will be able to get the money. You can send them gold, you can send them digital assets, tokenized stocks, and I don't know, you can send them a little piece of S&P 500 for their birthday, for instance. Why not? I actually think that's a great way for to connect to your money. So yes, crypto is the vehicle also, but ultimately what we're trying to do is to solve those financial needs that people have in their day-to-day life.
Yes, no, absolutely. And, we were talking about WeChat earlier as the super app, and WeChat Pay, the ability to send money and then have more financial products ended up being a key payment mechanism in the region. And so there's definitely a clear potential for, the wallet as the crypto as the vehicle to serve these financial utility needs, and then that be having the distribution and network effects for it to just become a very broad payment rail where even the folks outside of the ecosystem start to accept Telegram wallet as a payment mechanism because it has 150 million users and so on. And so let's dive into what that looks like, what that utility looks like. You mentioned sending money and sending assets, but there's more than just the send side. There's increasingly investment products and other things. So maybe you can talk about some of the recent launches and the work that you're working on.
Oh, for sure. Look, I'm very excited about to talk about all of the recent launches, and in fact, there's a lot more things to come. So, look, the evolution of wallet in Telegram has been actually quite impressive. So, what started as just a simple bot to buy Ton and Bitcoin on inside Telegram is now really evolving into a full-fledged universal financial platform, which could be the first touch, first entry point into crypto for many people. But again, like it can solve so many more needs than just crypto buy and sell. So what we have is basically a simple wallet that can send money. I think we talked about that can send money to anyone, that you can use to send money to anyone in Telegram. You can top it up with 0% fee, literally no fees, no commissions on ramp. You can off ramp, meaning you can get money out with withdraw it to cards. You can obviously buy and sell multiple hundreds of crypto assets. What has been added recently is tokenized stocks, so about 65 assets, and most of them are US equities. So companies such as Apple and Netflix and Tesla and Nvidia, of course, some of the most popular ones, as well as some of the ETFs and funds, Nasdaq and S&P 500, one of the most popular assets of all time, but also one of the most popular investment options for many people. And you can start from just $1. It's available 24/7 for the most popular assets and 24/5 for some of the others. So that has seen some phenomenal success and demand of our users. The feedback has been amazing. What we have basically done is what we're trying to do is democratizing investments in some way. Possibly, again, I would like to compare ourselves maybe to Robinhood, but Robinhood isn't available everywhere. I think we are solving for the markets where Robinhood is actually not present, where potentially some people may know about companies such as Interactive Brokers, but the barriers are actually quite high because there's a different sort of model built behind Interactive Brokers, and I don't think the entry point is as low. So from that perspective, starting from $1, buying a tiny little piece of, I don't know, again, like the asset that you believe in, or S&P 500, and starting to build your portfolio from there. We also work quite extensively with Tether. So coming back to the stable coins, again, like it all starts with the most, essential components of the experience. Investing in it's not a recent or new thing, but we obviously rely a lot on and we see a lot of demand for stable coins as a protection or hedging against the inflation. So just the ability to buy and send and store and earn on your crypto balance is actually really powerful and very, very sought after, very popular type of activities. You can buy digital gold, and in many markets, particularly like Asian markets, I think gold is by far the most trusted way to keep your savings. Some people prefer USDT or stablecoins. Some people prefer gold, and I think we've seen massive growth in gold over the course of the last year. So again, just another proof or another way for people to build their mini portfolio inside the wallet. So those are the components of the financial platform. And I think the funny thing is that the majority of people that haven't interacted with these wallets, they actually don't realize that they can earn on the balance, they can earn an interest. I think they probably think that crypto wallets are for like some altcoins, shady, whatever, dodgy, highly volatile assets, but it's not. You can perfectly build the same portfolio that you would create in another I don't know, investment app, just in a digital crypto form, and just be kind of well, benefit from all of the aspects of actually getting traction on that portfolio. So these are some of the recent things. And then the last one I'll add, we've just also launched perpetual futures, which is for slightly more sophisticated audience, obviously not the like the retail, but we've made it very, very simple. How it's used is obviously people familiar with the products probably would know. You can create an order, and basically, I don't know, if you believe that an asset is going to go, its price is going to go up, you can put a loan, and if you think that the price of the oil, for instance, is going to go down, you'll go short, and basically there is you can basically capitalize on any direction of the market. So as the crypto market is currently experiencing perhaps a little bit of a volatility and some slowdown, you can actually make something out of the movement. So we've just launched it a few days ago. It's now available not just for the crypto assets, but also for a lot of the commodities and some of the currency pairs. You can trade metals, you can trade oil and natural gas. Again, very, very popular type of assets these days. And some people have already made significant amount of money of it. Obviously, there is risk involved, so there's no guarantee that you can make money, but the barrier for entry is also quite low. You can also start from just $1 and start with sort of minimal exposure and minimal risk, and then gradually, as you build more appetite and more experience, go further. So those are, again, the plethora, a range of the different options for slightly like various audiences, all with really, really easy interfaces. And there's definitely going to be a lot more that we're working on. I can't share everything, but there are things that we're launching or working towards in the agentic space, and this is coming very soon. And then there are other things related to, again, experiments and gamification and adding more fun to that experience as well.
Right. And I think what you said is really critical, how it's all about democratizing financial access. And it's financial access to whatever it is the person needs to do. We've talked about just getting access to a stable currency or a stable asset. And I think when we talk about stable coins, we always talk about the US dollar in the reference point of someone in a country with a volatile currency. But there are lots of other assets that people look to for stability. And I think gold is a really important one. And there are other assets as well. And then I think I always think of a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but apply it to finance. There's, okay, at some point, let me just prevent myself from losing money. Let me just store. And then actually, now that I've got a rainy day fund, I want to now invest into something safe. And then actually, maybe depending on, how much along the financial nihilism path you are, maybe you go straight to, I want to take high risk. That's the only way I'm going to make money. And you want to do something leveraged or do something more volatile. And so there's a range of ways to solve all those things. And it's not necessarily just crypto, but blockchain is the rail. It enables you to give access to people who want US stocks. And I honestly think the US stocks will be a much more popular export than folks are giving it credit for. And I still think it's a big opportunity globally. People want S&P 500, NASDAQ, eventually NVIDIA, and eventually when they're public, OpenAI and Anthropic, I think are going to be the most popular US stocks that will be exported through these applications. But I think, as you mentioned, it's just key to give people those options and make it accessible at low dollar amounts. And then, as you said, in order to help people understand that, hey, by the way, your traditional account doesn't pay you for holding assets. We can pay you for holding assets. You have to put it into this thing called a vault or into a lending protocol. What's a lending protocol? Okay, here's all the information about it, but let's gamify it so that you can engage and then get educated. And so, the things that you said, it's all required to help people come along that path of, up the risk curve, obviously responsibly. But that's what blockchain is enabling. And I think I think it's more of a fintech 2.0 thing than a purely crypto thing. It's giving people access to things that they need to do. Some of it just happens to be crypto, and a lot of it runs on blockchain. But the key thing that I kind of want to dig into now is, All right, that's a lot of different countries, lots of different perspectives. You mentioned natural gas is one thing that happens. I'm sure in a certain set of countries that's very, very key. How do you manage your global expansion? Well, let's talk about your playbook, your selection, and then you go into a country, and then you've got to like build up some hype, and then start with experiments and run the kind of the growth play there. Let's talk about that. How does that work?
Mhm. Sure. All right. So look, I think as Wallets is a single app inside Telegram, but inside Wallet in Telegram, there are actually two products or two opportunities, two options for the users to choose from. One is a custodial wallet. So for those people that are not familiar with the term, custodial means that we hold custody and we are responsible for the money. So we operate in a way as a, I don't know, I think the closest proxy is indeed like a bank or a fintech. So there is a customer support, there's compliance, KYC, onboarding. We hold and manage the money, but we also take responsibility in front of the regulators of making sure that, any fraudulent transactions are blocked and stopped, and every like the correct AML sanction screening and so on, like other security barriers and checks and balances are in place. So that's one type, and that's where you can choose, certain services and actually work with your money. If you have more options in terms of the functionality, but you also are kind of trusting a little bit more. For those people that are not comfortable with that, or for whatever reason they may choose an alternative option, there is a self-custodial product called Ton Wallet, which is available globally, apart from, I think, a few handful of territories like North Korea or like some of the military zones. And basically that self-custodial solution, again, I'm simplifying it massively because maybe someone in the audience, a couple of people in the audience would not know what that is. Self-custodial wallets mean that you are ultimately in control of the money. That means that you are the only one responsible for holding your seed phrase. And if you lose it, nobody's going to be able to give it back to you. But there is perhaps, well, again, and it all runs on blockchain, and transactions are irreversible, virtually irreversible. So there is more transparency in that, there is more control for the users. But basically, coming back to your question, self-custodial is global. We don't need to bring it to more places. We also don't, we have some limitations also in terms of what can we say, but it's basically we're already able to solve everyone, to serve everyone who is on Telegram with that. With the self-custodial solution, we're getting licenses and we're applying where we may need to make sure that we work hand in hand with our compliance and legal team, and hand in hand with regulators too, making sure that we are compliant with all of the rule books within each of the jurisdiction where we're present. So we have launched a solution. We have launched our solution in Uzbekistan, where we now have a license, and that's one of the most recent licenses. But we also are on the way, are in process of getting quite a few more licenses in other really key markets and big hubs. I think I can probably kind of maybe spill the beans a little bit and share some of the names. So some of the countries are in Central Asia, but we're also applying for licenses in the UAE, in Europe, and in one of the countries in Latin America. So that's the first step in the international expansion. After we get the licenses, then my team is responsible for making sure that we bring the right sort of GTM motion, the right go-to-market plans and strategies in place. That we build local operations, we build local communities, we build local content, including again educational content, trying to explain to people what's the value that we bring, how we're better, how we're different, making sure that we integrate into local with local bloggers and to start a dialogue with the local community, identifying the right channels, the right platforms, the right media platforms, the right events for us to be at, and then hopefully gradually bringing that that adoption, really building that adoption. Our approach overall, if I just kind of take a step back and from a very, very high level view, what we're trying to, how we work to, or with country expansion, we start with market prioritization. So we evaluate countries based on a few different dimensions and criteria. We look at the market potential and Telegram adoption. We also look at the crypto adoption, a little bit at the unit economics too, just to make sure that our numbers actually, ultimately, at the end of the day, they all kind of come together nicely. So this allows us to rank the markets objectively and focus on those where we can actually make a difference, clear difference. And then we cluster the markets based into a few different types. So based on those signals, we group them together, and then it lets us, well, again, create those patterns or see those patterns. For the licensed markets, that's where we have like really we invest more time into big GTMs. But we sometimes also work and we have to make sure that we have like global operations, that we're present in Twitter, that we're present across all of Telegram and so on. So that's broadly speaking the expansion playbook. I'd say that over the course of the next 18 months, optimistically, of course, but we should be launching about 20 or so markets. So I think it will be a pretty exciting couple of years for us.
Yes, and I'm sure AI is helping you scale in that. And I would love to kind of dig in just on this example. There's a lot of founders listening in the audience who are like, okay, I'm also building a global app. Blockchain enables me to build globally, but now I've got users in all these different countries, and I seem to be picking up in country X. And you mentioned some of the things already, like it sounds like going on the ground, like understanding the culture, the community, who's running the blogs, who are the kind of micro influencers or influencers, as you might say. But like, what kind of other advice would you give to the head of growth at a startup who's trying to expand their app into a new country? Like, what are the things that they need to pay attention to? What have you learned over the time has been, okay, this is the thing that we need to care about?
I'd say that the GTM in our case starts with, again, like trying to understand, going into the market actually, and just trying to understand what can make the most amount of leverage, really. How can we create that leverage? And the leverage could be created through quite a few different things. So one example could be partnerships, like what local partnerships can we activate? And it could be investors, it could be advisors, it could be partners that already have existing presence and they may have market expertise. So that's your kind of, well, that's one of the assets, one of the resources that you can use. I mentioned Tether. So over the course of the last few days, I spent a lot of time in market actually with Tether, and just trying to also brainstorm some ideas about what kind of educational activities can we create jointly, what kind of co-marketing can we do in new markets, and basically just making sure that we work together towards the same goal. We have overlapping interests. We don't compete. In fact, we help them and they help us. So that's just an example of how it could be done. Some other examples of, I guess, the growth experiments. Look, I think in crypto world, growth channels are also relatively known, but there could be new ways, and again, still kind of creative things. KOLs, bloggers, influencers continue to be one of the strongest channels for a lot of the crypto communities. But you can also sort of build an influencer in so many ways. You can create a channel. You can actually become the most popular channel in a specific market. We've seen, and I'm also learning from the audience, and sorry, from the competition, really, from the universe, trying to see who is doing what, trying to watch what Binance is doing, how they build their social presence, how they build their affiliate programs. So I'm a big believer in staying curious and being exposed and learning from the best, but then trying to make a little tweak and then doing your version, your own variation. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe combine two ideas together. So that's what I like the most. What else? I've mentioned gamification. We're seeing a lot of traction with gamified experiences. gamification, if combined with education, I think could be a very powerful way to drive that initial adoption. Let me give you some more specific example. It's still running. I don't know by the time the show will be aired. I'm not sure if it will still be available, but there is a game now that is that we have kind of collaborated on. It's a very simple merger game called Gift Fest. It exists on Telegram. It's just a mini app. There's probably about 2 million people playing it per day. So that's actually, I think it's a pretty, pretty good scalable thing. And it's not a gambling game. It's actually, again, as mentioned, just a simple merger. You merge two objects, they can create something else, and then you merge and merge and merge, and you earn points. So there's like, you can't lose, right? You can get stuck, but you can't lose really. And through that game, we have collaborated with the game creators to create special tasks. And you unlock those tasks by, going and following our channel, or by actually completing a certain action, completing an onboarding experience. And basically, you earn extra energy. So by doing that, we give the players an extra reason to interact with the wallet, and it works wonderfully. It actually works really well. Human attention is captured, well, look, nobody is spending hours, very few people are spending hours just scrolling through their financial app, right? You come for that utility, you come for pragmatic reasons. Where you spend more time is either entertainment, gaming, or like again, scrolling through the social feeds. I think that's human nature, really. I think, obviously, again, there are exceptions, and some people are very special. They love, I don't know, again. But the majority of the normies, as we call them, the normal people, in fact, again, like myself, how we spend our free time is reading, watching, playing, spending time, or communicating, really. Not eating as well, I think, but generally speaking, the digital behavior. So if you integrate into those behaviors, I think we can and create reasons for hooks for people to actually interact with your app. It could be a great way. That's an experiment that we run. Last time we did it a few months ago, we generated about 1 million new users. So that's an example of an experiment that we will continue doing. So these are some options, but you can obviously come up with your own. Obviously, developing a game is complicated, but maybe someone, it's just keep your eyes and ears open. Maybe someone around you would be building something that you could just, connect the dots and collaborate with.
Yeah, no, I love that example, and there's gamification like in the application itself. I think people will think about Robinhood and how they make it easy to trade, and they have confetti when you make a trade and things like that. And then there's hooking into where attention already is, and I think a lot of apps use quests. It's like, okay, if you want to get more points or more currency or more credits, go do this thing and sign up to our social feed and so on. And so I like that, and I think. I spend a lot of time thinking about where AI is going and what it's taking over and what things will be solved by smarter models and what things will remain problems that can't be solved by intelligence. And I think growth is one of them because it's not a closed problem set. It's a constantly competing, multiplayer. Every time that you have a really cool campaign, somebody else might copy it. And so you're constantly trying to reinvent and be creative. And so I think that's a place where AI can't quite solve it. It can help you accelerate your ideation, but you still have to kind of connect the dots and be unique and catch the trend of things. So thank you for sharing all those. It's definitely something to keep in mind. And then lastly, as we talk about going back to the kind of country expansion, I think one thing that is a kind of core tenet of blockchains and stablecoins is that they're global. You talked about there's different to expand with a custodial wallet versus non-custodial. Non-custodial can go anywhere, but there are other elements of going global, and that's localization. We talked about the culture, the language, the marketing, but also there's the currency. And so non-US dollar stablecoins today are in this really interesting point where they're still less than 1%, less than 0.5% of total market cap of all stablecoins. And yet they command such excitement because people, I think, can see and foresee that once you just put people's financial lives on chain, as we've discussed, with equities and trading and so on, and people think in their local currencies, inevitably local currencies will be on chain. And everyone can connect those dots. But at the same time, the driving force of US dollar stablecoins has been the demand for the dollar and trying to escape local currencies. And so there's this kind of tension here. But increasingly, as financial applications are being built on chain, currencies going on chain, results from that. And we'd love to know, your experiences and what you're seeing in the various different markets that you operate in of the traction that non-US dollar stablecoins are having.
So, in all fairness and in full transparency, we currently don't have locally like other stablecoins denominated in non-USD. However, I have, I guess, a point of view to share rather than actual experience. So, look, the momentum and the momentum behind stablecoins is undeniable. There are hundreds of them that are currently being issued. In fact, you probably know the most recent numbers better than I do. I think it must be around 400 or so. And you're right. I think the vast majority are concentrated around USDT, USDC, potentially maybe a handful more. But I think up, the the time will absolutely come when every country, and in most countries, there will be a national stablecoin. It's I know that it's currently being discussed in at least 20, 30 different jurisdictions. Um, Regulators are pushing for that, different reasons. Some are doing that for trade, some are doing that for just to drive digitization of, the cash economies. So there could be different motifs, but I think ultimately it's going to be it's inevitable. What is going to happen, from my point of view, what we're going to face is we're going to face lack of interoperability, like huge fragmentation of all of those stable coins, because they may potentially be built on different rails. They may not necessarily all work together. And I think there's going to be a double fragmentation. The first one coming from the stable coins, the second one coming from, agentic AI, but potentially not necessarily all working together nicely. So stablecoin fragmentation will have to be solved by someone. I'm very much looking forward. So I think the winner is not going to be the issuer of the next big stable coin or two or five. It's actually going to be the infrastructure rails that are going to combine them all together and solve that fragmentation issue. So the rails that will make stable coins and maybe even end agents interoperable by default are going to be winners. And the use case for the locally denominated stablecoins, the reason why I think they're actually going to be popular is, well, one of the strongest ones is remittances in retail space. You want to make sure that you send money to and from, different destinations without friction. Currently, stablecoins are helping to solve remittances, but they're helping kind of in the back end, in the treasury systems of your cross-border payments companies. But they need to then convert them into fiat on both sides. But the reality is that we actually don't need that complicated flow when you have to have fiat to stable, go transferred somewhere, and then stable to local fiat in other place. You actually can create a flow that can work much more sort of natively. Where we are going to hopefully also step in is enable local payments with those local stables. So we'll have to figure out a way, but the vision, from my point of view, I would love to collaborate or to work with the domestic QR code payments and enable the ability to use stable coins in offline environments. Basically, at the point of sale, be able to use crypto. Again, very respectful of the regulation there, but I think there is a way to have a solution that will enable stable coins to be utilized in more traditional day-to-day use cases. And basically that is going to bring us to this wonderful reality. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for that to happen, where it's not going to be important whether the solution is built on crypto or blockchain. What people ultimately will be interacting with is a form of digital money. And I think that's where hopefully the blockchain is going to enable this new reality, that you don't need to think about whether it's crypto or not. You're just going to use it to solve your needs. And I think technology is going to step into the background, but utility and value is going to be the most important thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing I probably preach the most. It's just, okay, think about the utility that you're unlocking. And hence why, the Robinhoods, the Revoluts of the world, the Telegrams where, hey, I'm here for this thing that I care about. I'm messaging, I'm trading, I'm doing something, and I'm already here and it's providing value. And so, yes, just bring more of my financial life in here because I'm already here. Oh, and now you've given me a card. Now you enabled me to do online shopping. And before you know it, you're just making things super easy. And in the back end, it's on blockchains, and blockchains enable the firms to build these experiences. But the user doesn't really know or care. They just go use their Telegram app to a point of sale. It's got a QR code, they scan it, and it just works. And yes, it was facilitated by a non-US dollar stablecoin being in the account, being able to be transferred 24/7. So pools of liquidity didn't need to be held up. So it's more capital efficient. And so there's just so much of the financial operations that underlie these experiences that need to be made more efficient and can be made more efficient by blockchains. That folks who are not in the payment space or in the fintech space don't really care about. And that's how it should be. It should just be invisible. The technology disappears, and then we get the financial experiences that we want. So I'm excited for that. There's a lot more to come. I do think US dollar stablecoins are inevitable. It's going to take some time, but there's a lot of things to build. So very excited for the future here. This has been a great conversation. Where can folks go to learn more about you and Wallet and Telegram?
Sure. So there are three ways. You can start with, first of all, let me start with Wallet in Telegram. If you have Telegram, you should be able to find Wallet in Telegram either in your settings, literally just in Telegram settings, you'll see a little button that says Wallet. If you can't see it there, because we haven't rolled it out in all of the markets, US, you would have it, but in about 20 other markets, you would have it too. But then the rest of the world, you would probably need to look for @wallet. So just in Telegram search, you look for wallet or @wallet, and you'll be able to find it there. That's for wallet. If you don't find it for whatever reason, try to, connect to me. I will help you find it. I am available on LinkedIn, which is where I'm probably a little bit more active still, but I'm also obviously in Telegram, and you should be able to look me up with my name. I'm right there. My profile is searchable, and I'm also on Twitter. You should be able to find me there with search as well. So follow me, reach out, and I'll help you find wallets in Telegram. If you
Amazing. And we'll have all those details in the show notes. And for me, it's stablecoinblueprint.com, Chuck Okapligo on LinkedIn, and Chuck_XYZ on X. Thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Chuck.
Thanks so much for listening to Money Code. There was so much to take away from today's conversation. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too.
If you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor, share it with someone you know, or give us a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. Until next time.